When Hicham Faik and I met in our previous conversation, he enthusiastically shared his experience of what it takes to be a cybersecurity professional. Not to mention the valuable nuggets of information for those wanting to venture into cybersecurity. And there was so much, in terms of insights into what he shared in that conversation of such was this need to have a part two where we can actually explore, in terms of his skill set, his experience. He has a wealth of knowledge in terms of his background, and there was so much that he discussed in that previous conversation we had in part one. We decided that there's no way we could have actually not have this continuation in terms of going into a number of areas within cybersecurity that can definitely add value to us within the cybersecurity space. So today I explore with Isham Faik, a cybersecurity professional, a CISO, about the practical realities involved in managing security programs across multiple interconnected organizations as a global CISO. So, Isham, welcome to CyberGA.
Thank you, Richie, for having me again with you. It was a pleasure last time, and I hope again this time it would be good for us to exchange around many topics to deep dive on some very interesting topics today.
Awesome. It's indeed a pleasure. I always look forward to having these great conversations. The interesting thing about this community is that all of us have various unique skill set, various experiences that we actually bring to the table, as they would say. And it's always an awesome opportunity or an experience when persons can actually gather in these settings, despite the various challenges that we have, to actually provide that level of insights, as they would say, in terms of or wealth of knowledge or wealth of experience that can actually add value to persons who are actually seeking that level of direction and also experience to build their career level. So I really appreciate the fact that you have actually taken the time to be with us on Cyber JA, and no doubt the community will definitely appreciate what it is that you have to share with us in this conversation. Now, before you actually get into the details of our conversation, because no doubt that's one of the main things that persons are actually looking forward to see the one, two, or three things that you would be sharing with us. But before you actually we get into those details, can you share just a snippet of um, for example, as it relates to persons who might not be familiar with your background, just to give us an idea of who you are and yeah, your career
Okay,
development.
do it again. I have plus 22 years of cybersecurity experience, focused, dedicated to many jobs. As a CISO, I've worked a lot of time as a CISO over many industries: energy, banking, insurance, and I've wear the hat of cybersecurity consultant for many years too, providing consultancy. I did myself, for example, many pen testing, cybersecurity auditing to provide consultancy and value added consultancy to my customers, build with them their roadmaps, helping them to tackle with their pain points in cybersecurity. We will have the occasion to talk later today about them. And lastly, I was the global CISO of a large bank in Africa, where I built many foundations of cybersecurity, the organization, the SOC, the risk management frameworks, security operations, and many foundations that are essential to any enterprise willing to deal with the ever never ending cyber risks that evolve continuously. Now I'm founding a company, a firm to dedicate the knowledge and experience that I had to provide customers with top-notch, or let's say consultancy regarding very specific and advanced topics like cloud security, dealing with ransomware, doing some coaching to CISOs, building cybersecurity risk frameworks, and things like that. So to summarize, I have pretty good experience. I'm very happy today to share some of it with the community.
Great, and we definitely look forward to all those interesting details as it relates to those various areas. And many of us, I mean, including yourself, Faik, will definitely, to some extent, might agree that normally CISOs are accustomed to working with maybe one organization at a time in terms of managing their security program, their security departments. However, in your case, you are a global CISO. And many persons might not understand to what extent, in terms of what it is that a global CISO, the function of a global CISO. Can you share with us, give us some, I mean, details as it relates to when we talk about a global CISO? I mean, what are
Of
you
course.
referring to?
Of course, your point is very good and interesting to explain to the community what's the difference between a normal CISO and a global CISO. When you have a large company with subsidiaries, with the partners, with a lot of uh, uh, autonomous entities, and there is a global sponsorship saying that we should have the same cybersecurity roadmap, the same cybersecurity policies, a global strategy. You need someone to lead all these things and to structure, to make things coherent and build the global cybersecurity programs. So, in such companies, you will find the global CISO with his close team, structures again like any organization dealing with cybersecurity, but you will find on each entity or each subsidiary or each uh, um, holded company, you will find local CISOs. So, with their responsibilities, with their perimeters, with their obligations and responsibilities, you need in such situation to have a global structure to build communication, to make things understandable about the strategy, the policies, to take into account the regulations that are applicable to each country. So, because those companies are not together positions in the same country, generally they are under different regulations. So, you need to deal with that as a constraint or as a leverage to talk cybersecurity. There are other constraints regarding the solutions. Do you need to have the global solutions with the same vendor, with the frame contracts and things like that? Or you can allow diversification for cybersecurity reasons to not put all the eggs under the same hat. So all these things are under the responsibility of the global CISO. When you have also a global SOC dealing with all the monitoring, the consolidation, the dashboards, the structuralization of KPIs, and at the end of the day, when you talk with the top senior management talking about what's happening in cybersecurity or what's the level of cybersecurity in this subsidiary, you should be able to answer clearly in very concise with KPIs and telling the exact cybersecurity posture. So all these things belongs to the responsibility of a global CISO versus the local CISO, who is in general responsible of a certain perimeter, dealing with the global strategy, trying to be aligned with the global CISO, and dealing with local things, incidents, architecture, the local needs in the business, etc. So this is in summary.
Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of what a global CISO is, as you spoke about these responsibilities, there's so many things that I start to take into consideration. One, you are dealing with many different entities, possibly working within that same structure in terms of all the various stakeholders. You
Mm,
have various individual personalities in terms of various CISOs being in charge of these individual entities. You
mm,
have the various architectural structure within these entities. You have, as you have mentioned, various policies that governs each of these organizations. So, in the midst of all of this, there's one thing that actually pops out: challenges, challenges, challenges. How
right.
do you, from your perspective, deal with the various personalities, deal with the overall process of managing the various security programs, um, dealing with the implementation, the monitoring, to ensure that there is this alignment with the overall objective of all of these entities, to ensure that all of these CISOs are actually working together? What,
Mm.
what, what, what are the challenges that you have to, deal
You
with as it relates to this?
lots of challenging, evolving challenges. Uh, first, the first thing to do is to align with all these teams and to align on the language and the strategy. I started that through an assessment. I made an assessment to make all the local CISOs understand their posture and to talk the same language later, because the same assessment will happen upon all these subsidiaries and companies. We will align on the same levels of risks and our understanding of the impacts, risks, threats, talking about possible common mitigations, and identify weak points regarding the business objective, because each company, each subsidiary has its own structure of objective and business activities. So that was the first challenge: how to build a framework of assessments, of assessing all the companies, including the mother company, to be aligned and coherent about the assessment. Once this assessment has been done, there were many meetings to present, to align, to understand. That was the occasion from a management standpoint to gather the people that would be responsible about cybersecurity, to gather them and to make them understand that they are not under the pressure, under the spotlight of being reprimanded against weakness. No, we need to be transparent, neutral, and say things transparently to the management. Here is our posture. We all are together. We all make the same responsibilities and should talk the same language. Once this step is achieved, the team was linked and they are convinced that they will work together to reach the objective. So, right at this step, we had to build the real cybersecurity program. So, starting from the gaps, starting from the weak points and the priorities, we identified the top 10 actions to build during the first year, then the top 10 actions to build the second year, etc., etc. So there was the program with prioritization. And uh, of course, there is another big challenge: the budget. So, how to deal with budgeting when you start with subsidiaries that are used to defend their budget autonomously, without any support from the global CISO. So there was another challenge to do communication with the top senior managers of each company to make them understand that there is a global strategy, there is objectives, there are global risks that all together we need to mitigate through some actions that are split over all the subsidiaries. And of course, we need the sponsorship of the top management, of top senior management of the group, because all this cannot be feasible without the support of top management. Once done, action plans were spread, communicated, validated by local managers, and then we decide to bring the support to these subsidiaries to purchase things, to be supported by consultancy companies, to do global assessments, etc., etc. So we entered then to a follow-up process, a steering committee process to have a look continuously to what's happening and the status of advancement of each uh, local program. So the challenge is to have the team to consolidate information, to do decisions, to choose the right tools, to align and challenge the vendors around the framework architecture, the configuration, the assessment, and the acceptance of all these things without forgetting how to do the cultural change. Because when you start from a certain point of maturity and you expect to uh, uh, do a lap, a big lap to another level of maturity, you should take into consideration the change on the users. You will find resistance. This is a big challenge. You will find people from the IT that are not convinced with what you're bringing up as cybersecurity solutions. So there are resistance. So you need to uh, uh, form and train the local CISOs how to deal with these challenges through training, through coaching, through providing the demonstrations and the way to make things being understandable by local managers. So all these are challenges among a lot of them that you face for each project. Sometimes the challenges are technical, because in some situations, some environments, some solutions are not working as expected. So you need to find solutions. So you have to have skills, technical skills with the team, the right team to do things. So all these are uh, uh, some challenges you find and you face when you are dealing with a global cybersecurity program.
Okay, great. And that's indeed a lot to deal with in terms of management, not to mention the personalities, not to mention the culture that exists, that you have to find various strategies in terms of actually aligning those organizations on the mindset to
Mhm.
actually be in alignment with the objectives of the business and the culture that you're actually looking for. Um, Now, in light of all the various cybersecurity challenges that exist, no doubt the stakeholders within these organizations are actually relying on you to provide that level of assurance that we are
Yes.
efficient, we are safe in light of the various breaches that are actually taking place, the various penalties, not to mention the various regulations that these
Exactly.
entities will have to operate within. Um, how do you provide that level of assurance or trust from the executive perspective? I mean, example as it relates to maybe the KPIs that you will use to measure the effectiveness of your overall performance or your security programs.
Exactly. First of all, when you build this kind of program, you should provide the right support uh, uh, to the local CISO. And say to him that you are here to support him and help him defend his local strategy. So after doing the assessments, I attend myself to the presentation where the local CISO is, of course, attending, but also the IT management and the general management of the subsidiary. Because I have a lot of messages to convey to those persons, telling them that the group, the global CISO and his team, is here to support. Through what? Through the right communication, the right coaching of the local team, helping him size how to recruit, how to upskill the technical and soft skills of the team, and provide adaptable policies to the context, provide dashboards, templates of dashboards, and align with the general management and the CIO regarding the KPIs that we will follow through all the process. And intelligently, as a global CISO, for each subsidiary, I identified some key business projects. And talking with the local CISO, I tell him, look, if you demonstrate that you are supporting, you are a business enabler, you are finding solution for the business, you will win. And if you do that, in parallel, you can build your technical stuff, your technical foundations in parallel to providing and being flexible. If you are rigid, if you are binary decision maker, you will not win. So you have to be flexible, especially if you are in a building phase. So my position was providing me this high level overview for all what's happening in subsidiaries. And many times I used example from one subsidiary to defend and push different challenges when they happen on the other subsidiary. So I was like a global coordinator, a global chief orchestrator to animate, to support, and to help beside my responsibilities regarding technical and leadership of cybersecurity strategy. I spend a lot of my time supporting the team from individual things, from their upskilling and for their skills to tackle with the biggest challenge of a CISO is to talk the same language as the management. This was my point of attack to win the cybersecurity battle.
Great. I mean, I've actually heard that so many times, that challenge of actually gaining the support with the executives to actually gain that level of support. That's
Mm.
always been a point of challenge. And I
Yes, sir.
think that our boards are actually getting more cyber aware. So
Correct.
hopefully, as we progress further into the future, then the dynamics, I mean, in terms of the persons, the CEO, the persons that are actually part of the executive team, are more understanding the importance of actually supporting cybersecurity initiatives. So I believe as we go along, the resistance to supporting these budgets will actually start to be a little bit more relaxed as we progress forward. Well, just being optimistic as we speak. Yeah.
You're right. You're right. As far we are dealing with the cybersecurity journey, we observe effectively that the executives, the management are more aware because of news, because of everything is talking about ransomwares, about extortion, about attacks, denial of service. All these things surfing around us make us more aware about. But we still have the challenge because there is one challenge is the budget. There is, unfortunately, for cybersecurity, we are still comparing the budget of cybersecurity to the budget of IT. we still use some percentages telling what should be the percentage of cybersecurity spending regarding the percentage of IT. So I have the response because we find it in lots of reports from coming from many studying companies. We say that the budget is between 8 to 12%, depending on the posture of the company. But uh, frankly, we need a lot of budget because uh, the risks are far, far, far more pregnant, far more attacking, far more difficult to handle with only such percentage of budgets. We need also to be more intelligent because, as I said last time in the first episode, we need automation to optimize the cybersecurity tooling because there is shortage in skills, shortage in resources. We need to be intelligent to combine the right tools, the right solutions, with the right uh, risk acceptance or risk management framework in the company. So this balance is difficult, and that is the challenge of the CISO. When defending his budget, uh, as he reached now to the board and is talking many times with the board, so the board expects from the CISO to talk a language of money, of return of investment, of things that they understand. They talk risk, especially in some regulated companies where there are risk management, global risk management. The CISO should not isolate himself in talking. There is a vulnerability about CVSS 9.6 causing this exploitation with lateral movement. This is not understandable to any manager or executive. What they understand, what's the impact on the business? How many times, if we are attacked by a ransomware, are we resilient? Are we ready to recover our data? If there is, by unfortunate chances, if there are any losses, how can you quantify these losses? So these things are the information expected by the management. If we come back to defending the budget, uh, every CISO should have under the table a tool or a way, a methodology to build the business case, to build a return of investment calculation. So these things are new skills for the CISO. It's not used to do that. It was used maybe to talk strategy, to talk dependencies between cybersecurity projects, talking vulnerability, talking with the production team. But talking financial things are very new to a CISO. So he needs to upskill on that stuff. So right now, with every occasion I find with some colleagues, friends, fellow CISOs, I try to build with them that such things to transform the mindset of a CISO to talk a higher level language to win more the battle of cybersecurity.
That's a very important point you've actually made mention of, and there are so many discussions surrounding this as it relates to being able to communicate effectively. So
Mm,
it goes beyond just what you have mentioned, but actually take and the thing is that no one is saying that as a CISO or a cybersecurity leader, then you have to go to maybe do a deep dive course into economics or finance, but being able to associate what it is that you're trying to achieve in relation to finance, monetary value. As you have actually mentioned, if we should, for example, go offline, let's say we are a web um, based operated maybe company or online store, what
mm,
will it cost us if our store is not available for 1 day, 2 day.
Yeah.
That level of communication actually makes a difference to say that if our systems are offline for 5 minutes, say a day, then it's going to cost us, say 20,000. I mean, depending on the currency for
Yeah.
that day, then that makes a lot of difference than to say that, um, based on the vulnerabilities, then XYZ.
Mhm.
At times, I mean, the executives do not really want to hear that sort of, yeah, gibberish,
What
as they
what
would
I
say.
what I observed in many situations that companies, they when you ask them, do you have a business continuity plan? They say yes, we do have such business continuity plan. We did our business impact analysis. We calculated the amount of money that we would lose if such thing happens to our information systems. But unfortunately, it's done on a static, one shot exercise. The CISO has a responsibility that is continuous on time. So when such threat happens, he should be able 2 days after that, when he was asked and have a meeting with the general manager, telling him, so what's the situation? What would happen if such things is concrete? He should take the initial calculations, for example, from the business continuity plan and integrate them to a continuous analysis and monitoring of the situation. To be more concrete, we have the SOC. SOC is doing threat intelligence, is looking at what's happening externally to the company. They see that there is a global threat using vulnerability around application or something like that. So he should take that calculation, inform the CISO. The CISO would work with his team of GRC, General Risk Management and Governance, to do a contextual analysis to prepare the decision or to prepare the right information to send to the general manager and to the team, because they need to have a, a transparent and actual look at what's happening, the situation is happening, the threat, the impact, the risk, the mitigation actions. So you need to connect all these silos of activities, business continuity, SOC monitoring, GRC, to provide a good dashboard uh, uh, to be able to make the right decision.
Yes, also very important. Um, but in addition to all of this, there is one buzzword that is actually, floating around in all of that you have actually said so far, and it has to do with resiliency. So we often hear about, I mean, cybersecurity resiliency. We want our organizations to be as resilient as possible. And recently, you posted a few articles on LinkedIn. I mean, one of them states that 8 key points to summarize cyber resilience. Can you take us through that? I mean, shed some lights on that when you talk about cyber resiliency.
Yes, yes. It was a topic and still a topic of every mouth because everything's happening, threats, incidents. It's a matter of resiliency. Many years ago, we were talking about uh, business continuity. We're talking about how to respond, to react. Now, the business and the business people will not talk about continuity, they'll talk about resistance. How are you able to withstand an attack? How are you able to be continuously ready to recover your data, to communicate transparently, and to have the technical and uh, soft skills to tackle with such problems? So, in my opinion, cyber resilience rely on some foundations. The first one is to understand your ecosystem and business environments, because you cannot, uh, if your activity, if your industry is linked with partners, with third party relations, if you rely if you have many customers, public customers, when you are touched with an incident, you need to understand what are the impacts beyond your perimeters to those partners and your ecosystem. So this is the first foundation of business resilience. The second one is to understand every regulation related to your business. And we have such regulations that are imposing, that are mandatory to deal with resiliency as a topic. Especially in finance and banking, there are lots of regulations talking about resilience because they deeply understand the linkage between banking, between global systems, between SWIFT, for example, between monetary banks, lots of components in the ecosystem. So you need to understand the regulation for that. The second one is to properly design the third pillar in this vision of cyber resilience is to design the right architecture. These architectures means networks, means systems, means clouds, mean virtualization, means security solutions that providing redundancy, replication of data, backups that are protected against ransomware, for example. All these things belongs to good design of architecture with the right procedures and things like that. And these things rely also on a strategy. You have to build a strategy that understand the prioritization of your business. If by incidents happening that touch your business, you need, like in business continuity planning, you need to uh, provide, design the right prioritization of recovery. And finally, you have to do exercise, to rehearse, to train, because these incidents, if they are not happening right now, they will happen tomorrow or after tomorrow. So you need to train not only the technical teams, you need to train your business managers through simulation, through exercises. Now we have many frameworks doing or framing all what we need as a company to be ready from an organizational standpoint against resilience threats. So all, in my opinion, all these are the pillars, and everyone willing to build a cyber resilience program can use this framework, global framework, to succeed in his journey of cyber resilience.
Great. I mean, those are a number of great pointers as it relates to giving that level of resilience within organizations. I mean, that is so important. And the fact is that I've always said this, that we can, or organizations can have 100% security. But
Mhm.
if you have 100% security, then you will definitely have no functionality. So where there's functionality, then there are going to be a risk that you have to find ways to manage and to deal with within your operations. Now, from a GRC perspective, as it relates to risk management, I mean, can you maybe share some insights on the importance of actually having maybe internal security audits within your organization? What are some of the benefits of actually not waiting on something to happen, or to consult for maybe an external audit because there's a particular incident, but actually taking that time to say, let us ensure that we are up to par. We are actually doing that gap assessment to ensure that we are actually in alignment with our
Mm.
main objectives.
Yes, yes. Before deep diving to answer your question, first we have to understand and distinguish between the different types of security auditing. Many people know penetration testing because it's easy and it's so well known right now that all young junior engineers in cybersecurity are interested in penetration testing because there is excitement, there is challenge to find things. But um, penetration testing was created because uh, automation of analysis of against any framework was not sufficient to find the breaches, to find ways to go beyond and exploit some local breaches to reach the crown jewels, for example, or to harm the information system. So here we could distinguish between configuration assessments, which means you take the configuration of any system, application, cloud, anything, and you try to find any misconfiguration or any gap between the best practices of configuration, like CIS framework or CIS benchmark, given for each kind of system the right configuration to implement according to the level of cybersecurity you want to have at that system. So we have configuration assessment, configuration security assessment. Second, you have architecture assessments, which goes beyond configuration and see how the architecture is designed. Here, typically, when you are facing or building a cyber resilience program, you make interesting things regarding the architectures. Architecture of authentication, architecture of federated provisioning of machines, when you have hybrid clouds, when you want to build isolated networks, you want to build privilege and access management, and lots of things involved in an architecture and not seen in the configuration analysis. After that, if you want to check manually and to build the hat of a hacker, you ask a white hat hacker to come and do some pen testing. Uh, in general, the pen tester starts with a vulnerability scanning through tools that any company can purchase and implement internally on the company to have a continuous assessment, continuous validation, continuous scanning of their assets and see what are the new vulnerabilities that can come from two situations. The vulnerabilities that are created through misconfiguration or created through a new implementation of a new machine, a new solution. And there are vulnerabilities that are seen through such solution because uh, we have vulnerabilities appearing through some people that finds vulnerabilities on the wild, and they are present on the solutions, and and vulnerability scanning should help identify such vulnerabilities. And if you take the combination of all these kinds of audits, configuration, architecture, vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, you can add another type of audit, which is the application and coding assessments. Those things are very specific to each technology of programming. So you ask someone who is very good at that technology to do an assessment against, again, a framework of best practices like OWASP framework. Uh, as a CISO, you are now facing a huge amount of data telling you about vulnerabilities at different levels of the information system. So you have to consolidate. You have to understand. You have to do a framework, because if you are under regulation, asking you to do these things, you have to provide reports. You have to provide action plans. You have to correct the vulnerabilities under a certain period uh, of time. So it creates a huge amount of activities. In such situation, you create a dedicated team dealing all over the year with such audits, such security audits, such action plans. Without forgetting another aspect is that in some companies, especially regulated companies, they do have a separate entity doing control and audits. All this company, this entity, uh, uh, its mission is to control if the security team is doing correctly its job. So they are pushing another layer of security auditing to check if the first layer of controls, verification that is doing by the CISO himself, because he wants to see if the program he's building is going to the right way through the different layers of assessments. A third layer that we can find is external audits, where uh, sometimes the general manager or the regulator of the industry is sending an external consultancy team to do audits, because he wants, as part of his controls, annual controls of the company, to make sure that from a cybersecurity standpoint, everything is all right. So we can see this as three layers. Everything related to security auditing done by the CISO and his team. Uh, the layers that is done through an internal and isolated entity in the company doing audits and controls. And we have the external layer, where we have completely external company doing auditing. So the CISO should have the tools, should have the team, should have the way, because there is a challenge that I lift many times. If there are many pen testers doing their auditings, for sure they will provide reports, they will provide assessments, they will provide risk evaluation. How do you make sure that everything is coherent and is standardized? So you need to build a framework for standardization of all these things. You provide the rules of engagement to any auditor and tell him, okay, if you find something between that and that, you consider this kind of risk. If you find such a breach with such impacts, you should consider such type of risk. So this kind of communication discussion should happen before the audits, and should even happen on the RFP phase with any consultant coming to do any kind of audits. Because if you do not do that, you will face a very big challenge, very big amount of effort to make the results, the presentation, the consolidation should be easy if you make the standardization. Later, if you take some maturity in responding and action plans regarding all these kinds of audits, you can have a tool to consolidate, because you should provide automated reports, automated follow-ups. Even you can help the GRC team consume these informations, because they are inputs, they are valuable inputs in their risk assessments, risk generation, risk follow-up. And you see here, you can build a coherent and a global vision from a very technical view of the risks, to a high level view of risk management through continuously integrating new entrants, new vulnerabilities. Uh, that's a big challenge for every CISO.
I mean, that's quite involved. I mean, so often it's so easy to look on for many persons and to point fingers, especially when organizations face these various, I mean, incidents, breaches, to say the CISO was not doing his job and all of these things. But there's so much that actually goes on behind the scenes as it relates to all the technicalities having to deal with um, not just the technology. That's they normally say that's the easy part. The technology, I mean, machines, well, do not speak back. When you have to deal with culture, people, that is where the challenges are. So indeed, the role of, I mean, a CISO, not to mention a global CISO, as you have rightly explained in terms of breaking down the strategies, your challenges, looking at the levels of resiliency, how it is that we achieve resiliency, the importance of, I mean, conducting those internal audits to identify the various gaps that exist as it relates to mitigating the risk. There's so much that is involved. Now, in all of this, based on your experience, I mean, this is, I would say, the very last question that I have for you. I mean, there's so many things that we could actually go into, but the very last question is, what makes someone an effective cybersecurity leader?
To be a leader, you have to build your soft skills. Leadership is something that you can learn. If, you have to be motivated to be a leader, to train yourself in to be very pragmatic. You need to be a good communicator. You need to understand to be open to understand and to listen to the others, your team, your colleagues, your environment, your managers, executives, production, business, and to spend a much good portion of your time doing these things because you want to succeed in your job. You need to listen to the others, listen to their pains, listen to their expectations, listen to their remarks and critiques. Why not? Once you do that, you charge yourself with a very good technical foundation because as a CISO, persons are seeing you as the cybersecurity expert, whatever the situation. Even if you have the position of a very high level manager of cybersecurity, you still be seen as some sort of expertise. The difficulty is to combine between the soft skills and technical skills. In whatever situation, leadership needs to build and to maintain your will. Lots of reading. You have to read books regarding negotiation. Negotiation is something very important for a CISO. Every time, every day, he's doing negotiation. Reading books about management the team, reading books about communication, analysis, decision making. All these soft skills are very important for any CISO willing to be a real leader, without mentioning that he should maintain technical knowledge through certifications, through reading technical books, be subscribing to a community, listening to interesting podcasts like this one, CyberGA, and continuously interact, share, read things. Uh, this is the way that you can handle yourself and take in charge yourself to improve and stay at a leadership position.
Isham, this was a very intuitive, value added conversation. And it was a pleasure, having this conversation with you.
Pleasure is mine.
Great, I really appreciate it, and I believe that the community definitely value all that you have actually shared with us. That level of experience, the way in which you have actually broken down all of these various steps, the challenges, looking at all these important elements that are involved in the role of a CISO, and more so a global CISO, and also the fact that these elements can also, these are things that we as upcoming cybersecurity professional, many of us are actually looking forward to be at the senior level within our organization. So these are definitely important elements that you have highlighted that we can actually use to build our skill set to become better security practitioners within the industry. So I definitely appreciate your time, and I look forward to having many more, future conversations like this in the near future.
Thank you very much, Richie. It was a real pleasure to talk with you today.
Okay, great. So to everyone else, follow us on CyberJA for all future updates.